What if you lost everything in a single moment? What if half the people you loved simply vanished into dust and there was nothing you could do to stop it? Released in 2019 with a budget of around $356 million, Avengers Endgame became one of the biggest movies ever made. Directed by Anthony and Joe Russo, the film serves as the emotional conclusion to more than a decade of Marvel storytelling. After the devastating ending of Avengers Infinity War, the remaining heroes are left broken, defeated, and struggling to find hope in a world that has changed forever. This is not just a story about superheroes saving the universe, it is a story about loss, regret, sacrifice, and the determination to keep fighting even when everything seems impossible. Before we continue, if you enjoy movie explanations and deep movie reviews, make sure to follow the channel, leave a like, and share your thoughts in the comments. Now, let's begin this incredible journey. The movie opens in a peaceful countryside setting where Clint Barton, also known as Hawkeye, is spending quality time with his family. He teaches his daughter how to shoot arrows while enjoying a calm afternoon with his wife and children. Everything seems perfect. The sun is shining, laughter fills the air, and Clint appears happier than ever. But suddenly something strange happens. As Clint turns away for only a few seconds, his daughter disappears. Confused, he calls out to her. Then he notices that his wife and sons have vanished as well. Panic immediately takes over. He searches desperately around the property, shouting their names. There is no answer. Unknown to Clint at that moment, Thanos has just completed the snap using the Infinity Stones, wiping out half of all life in the universe. In a matter of seconds, Clint loses his entire family. The story then shifts to outer space where Tony Stark and Nebula are stranded aboard the damaged Venator spacecraft. Following the battle on Titan, they have been drifting through space for weeks with almost no food, water, or oxygen left. Tony, once known for his confidence and endless jokes, now looks exhausted and weak. His advanced Iron Man technology cannot solve this problem. For the first time in a long while, he is completely helpless. Tony records a final message for Pepper Potts using his Iron Man helmet. In the recording, he speaks calmly but sadly, accepting that he may not survive. He thanks Pepper for everything and expresses his love for her. The scene is emotional because viewers understand how much Tony has changed since the beginning of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The selfish billionaire who once cared only about himself has become someone willing to sacrifice everything for the people he loves. Nebula sits quietly beside Tony throughout this ordeal. Although she was once a ruthless warrior raised by Thanos, she has slowly developed a sense of compassion and friendship. She and Tony spend their final days playing games and supporting one another. Their unlikely friendship becomes one of the movie's most touching elements. Both characters have suffered greatly because of Thanos, and both understand what it feels like to lose everything. Just as all hope seems lost, a bright light appears outside the spacecraft. Someone has arrived. Tony and Nebula are rescued by Captain Marvel, one of the most powerful heroes in the universe. Using her incredible abilities, she guides the spacecraft safely back to Earth. The surviving Avengers finally reunite, though the celebration is short lived because everyone is still dealing with the devastating consequences of Thanos' actions. Back on Earth, the remaining heroes gather at the Avengers headquarters. Steve Rogers, Natasha Romanoff, Bruce Banner, James Rhodes, Rocket, Thor, and others discuss their situation. The atmosphere is heavy with grief and frustration. Millions of families have been destroyed. Entire communities have disappeared. Governments are struggling to function. The world feels broken. When Tony arrives, emotions quickly boil over. He is furious with Steve Rogers. Before the events of Infinity War, the Avengers had split apart because of disagreements and mistrust. Tony believes they could have defeated Thanos if the team had remained united. Weak from his journey, but overwhelmed by anger, Tony lashes out at Steve. He accuses him of abandoning the team when they needed each other most. Steve listens quietly as Tony expresses years of frustration. The confrontation reveals how deeply the failure against Thanos has affected everyone. These heroes are not simply dealing with a lost battle, they are carrying the weight of an unimaginable tragedy. Tony eventually collapses from exhaustion and receives medical attention, while the others continue planning their next move. Meanwhile, Nebula provides a crucial piece of information. She explains that Thanos always intended to retire peacefully after achieving his goal. By analyzing energy readings connected to the Infinity Stones, the Avengers discover that a massive surge of energy occurred on a distant planet. They suspect that Thanos used the stones again after the snap. Suddenly, a new sense of purpose fills the room. For the first time since their defeat, the Avengers have a lead. If Thanos still possesses the Infinity Stones, perhaps they can reverse everything. Perhaps there is still a chance to bring everyone back. Without wasting any time, the team prepares for one final mission. Captain Marvel, Thor, Rocket, Bruce Banner, Steve Rogers, Natasha Romanoff, Rhodey, and Nebula board a spacecraft and travel across the galaxy. Every member of the team understands the risks, but none of them are willing to give up. They have lost too much already. When they finally arrive on the remote planet, they discover a surprisingly peaceful landscape. Thanos is not sitting on a throne surrounded by armies. Instead, he lives alone like a farmer. The man who changed the universe forever now spends his days in isolation. This unexpected image highlights one of the film's central themes. Victory does not always bring happiness. The Avengers launch a surprise attack. Thor strikes first with his powerful weapon Stormbreaker. Captain Marvel restrains Thanos while the others join the fight. Unlike previous battles, the heroes quickly gain the upper hand. Within moments, Thanos is defeated and captured. It seems their nightmare may finally be over. But then they learn a horrifying truth. Thanos reveals that after using the Infinity Stones to eliminate half of all life, he destroyed the stones themselves. He believed that as long as the stones existed, someone would eventually try to undo his work. By destroying them, he ensured that his actions could never be reversed. The revelation shocks everyone. The mission that represented their last hope suddenly becomes meaningless. Years of sacrifice, endless battles, and unimaginable loss appear to have accomplished nothing. The heroes stare at Thanos in disbelief, struggling to process what they have just heard. Consumed by grief and rage, Thor takes a step forward. Remembering his failure to stop Thanos during the battle in Wakanda, he finally acts. In one swift motion, Thor swings Stormbreaker and cuts off Thanos' head. The Mad Titan is dead. The room falls silent. No cheers, no celebration, no victory, only emptiness. The Avengers have killed the greatest threat in the universe, but nothing has changed. Their friends and families remain gone. The universe remains broken, and for the first time, the heroes have absolutely no idea what to do next. The screen fades as the story prepares to jump forward into a future where the surviving Avengers must learn how to live with their failure, setting the stage for one of the most emotional chapters in Marvel history. 5 years pass after the death of Thanos, and the world is still struggling to recover from the snap. Unlike many superhero stories where life quickly returns to normal after a disaster, Endgame shows the lasting consequences of loss. Cities feel quieter, entire neighborhoods remain empty, and countless families are still grieving loved ones who disappeared. The remaining Avengers have gone their separate ways in different ways. Some continue trying to help the world move forward, while others have completely lost their sense of purpose. The team that once protected Earth now feels broken, with each member carrying emotional scars from their failure to stop Thanos. These years of pain and regret have changed them all, and nowhere is that change more visible than in Steve Rogers, who spends much of his time leading support groups for survivors. He encourages people to keep living despite their losses, but even he struggles to follow his own advice. Steve remains dedicated to helping others, yet deep inside, he still feels the weight of everyone he could not save. Every meeting reminds him of the lives destroyed by the snap, and every story he hears strengthens his determination to keep searching for hope, even when none seems to exist. Natasha Romanoff has become the person holding the remaining Avengers together. From the Avengers headquarters, she coordinates missions and maintains communication with heroes stationed across the world and beyond. Through holographic meetings, she stays in contact with Rocket, Captain Marvel, Okoye, War Machine, and Nebula. Although Natasha appears strong and focused, it becomes clear that she is carrying an enormous emotional burden. The Avengers have become her family, and losing so many teammates has left a deep emptiness in her life. Unlike some of the others, she refuses to move on because moving on feels like giving up. She spends nearly all her time working, hoping that somehow a solution will eventually appear. During one meeting, the group discusses various crises occurring around the globe. While they continue helping where they can, everyone understands that these efforts are only treating symptoms. The real problem remains unsolved. Half of all life is still gone. Natasha's determination keeps the team functioning, but even she is beginning to realize that their chances of reversing the tragedy are practically non existent. Still, she refuses to surrender because the alternative would mean accepting defeat forever. Meanwhile, Thor has changed dramatically since the events on Thanos' planet. Once the proud and fearless god of thunder, he now spends his days hiding from responsibility. Consumed by guilt over failing to stop Thanos when he had the chance, Thor has retreated to New Asgard, a settlement built in Norway for the surviving Asgardians. Instead of leading his people with confidence, he isolates himself inside his home, overeating, drinking heavily, and avoiding the outside world. His friends Korg and Meek stay with him, providing occasional humor, but beneath the comedy lies a deeply sad reality. Thor blames himself for everything that happened. He remembers the moment in Infinity War when he struck Thanos in the chest rather than aiming for the head. In his mind, that mistake allowed the snap to happen. Every day since then has been filled with regret. The once mighty warrior now struggles to even discuss the past without becoming emotional. His transformation illustrates one of the movie's most important themes. Even heroes can break under the weight of failure. Despite possessing immense power, Thor cannot escape the consequences of his decisions, and his pain continues growing with each passing year. Elsewhere, Bruce Banner has achieved something that once seemed impossible. After years of conflict between himself and the Hulk, he has finally merged both identities into one. Using advanced science and experimentation, Bruce combined his intelligence with the Hulk's physical strength, creating what many fans call Professor Hulk. Now living comfortably in this new form, Bruce has become something of a celebrity. Children recognize him in public, ask for photos, and admire him as a hero. Unlike Thor, Bruce appears to have found a measure of peace. However, even he cannot completely escape the shadow of the snap. Although he presents a positive attitude and focuses on helping others, there remains an underlying sadness whenever the subject of their failure arises. Bruce understands that despite all their victories over the years, the most important battle was the one they lost. Nevertheless, he continues moving forward because he believes that giving up would dishonor everyone who disappeared. His ability to adapt and evolve demonstrates a different response to tragedy than Thor's. Where Thor withdrew from the world, Bruce chose to rebuild himself and continue contributing in whatever ways he could. The biggest surprise comes from Clint Barton. After losing his entire family during the snap, he has transformed into a much darker person. Believing that the world no longer makes sense, Clint abandons his identity as Hawkeye and becomes a ruthless vigilante known as Ronin. Traveling across the globe, he hunts criminals and organized crime leaders with brutal efficiency. In his view, countless innocent people vanished while many dangerous criminals survived. This perceived injustice fuels his anger and drives him toward increasingly violent actions. Natasha eventually tracks him down in Japan after hearing reports of mysterious killings linked to Ronin. When she finds Clint, she sees a man consumed by grief and rage. The cheerful father and loyal teammate she once knew has been replaced by someone barely holding himself together. Natasha tries to convince him that there is still something worth fighting for, but Clint struggles to believe her. His family was everything to him, and without them, life feels empty. Yet, despite his pain, he still trusts Natasha more than anyone else. Their friendship has survived countless battles, and it remains one of the few connections keeping Clint from completely losing himself. Reluctantly, he agrees to return with her, though neither of them knows what future awaits. Just when it seems that the Avengers story has reached a dead end, an unexpected event changes everything. Scott Lang, also known as Ant-Man, suddenly escapes from the quantum realm after being trapped there for 5 years. Due to the strange nature of time within the quantum realm, Scott experiences those 5 years as only a few hours. Confused and desperate, he returns home searching for his daughter Cassie. At first, he fears she may have been erased by the snap, but to his relief, he discovers that she survived and has grown into a teenager during his absence. Realizing how much time has passed, Scott begins thinking about his unusual experience inside the quantum realm. The strange way time behaved there sparks an incredible idea. What if the quantum realm could allow travel through time itself? Excited by the possibility, Scott rushes to the Avengers headquarters and shares his theory with Natasha and Steve. At first, the idea sounds impossible, but as Scott explains further, hope begins to appear where none existed before. For 5 long years, the Avengers believed there was no solution. Now, for the first time since the snap, they may have discovered a way to undo the greatest tragedy in the history of the universe. The impossible suddenly feels possible again, and a new mission is about to begin.
Scott Lang's idea about time travel sounds almost impossible, but after everything the Avengers have experienced over the years, they know that impossible things sometimes become reality. Steve Rogers and Natasha Romanoff carefully listen as Scott explains how time behaved differently inside the quantum realm. For Scott, only a few hours seemed to pass, yet 5 entire years had gone by in the real world. The more they discuss it, the more they begin to believe that the quantum realm could be the key to changing history. However, having a theory and actually making it work are two very different things. The Avengers need someone capable of understanding the complex science behind such an extraordinary plan. There is only one person who might be able to help them, Tony Stark. Although Tony had been one of the strongest supporters of finding a solution in the past, 5 years have changed his life dramatically. Unlike many of the other heroes, he has found something worth protecting in the world that remains after the snap. Convincing him to risk everything again will not be easy. Steve, Natasha, and Scott travel to Tony's lakeside home, where they discover a completely different version of the man they once knew. Tony is no longer living in a laboratory or preparing for another battle. Instead, he is enjoying a peaceful life with Pepper Potts and their young daughter Morgan. For the first time in decades, Tony seems genuinely happy. He spends his days with his family, far away from the responsibilities and dangers that once consumed his life. When the visitors arrive, Tony welcomes them politely, but it quickly becomes clear that he has no interest in returning to the fight. Scott enthusiastically presents the concept of time travel, explaining how they might retrieve the Infinity Stones from the past and use them to reverse the snap. Steve and Natasha hope Tony will immediately recognize the opportunity. Instead, he reacts with skepticism and frustration. Tony reminds them that they already lost once. He refuses to gamble away the life he has built over the last 5 years. While he still misses everyone they lost, he cannot ignore the fact that he now has a daughter. To him, risking the timeline could mean losing Morgan, and that is a sacrifice he is unwilling to make. After the others leave, Tony attempts to put the idea out of his mind and return to normal life, yet he cannot stop thinking about it. Deep down, he remains the same brilliant inventor who has spent years trying to solve impossible problems. Later that evening, while working in his home laboratory, Tony begins analyzing the theory. What starts as simple curiosity soon turns into serious scientific investigation. Using advanced simulations and calculations, he explores the possibility of navigating time through the quantum realm. To his surprise, the impossible begins to look achievable. After countless calculations, Tony successfully creates a model that could make time travel work. The discovery leaves him stunned. For years, he believed there was no way to undo the damage caused by Thanos, but now a solution appears to be sitting right in front of him. Yet, instead of celebrating, Tony faces a painful dilemma. If he shares this discovery with the Avengers, everything will change. The peaceful life he built may disappear forever. He looks at a photograph of Peter Parker, the young hero who vanished during the snap, and remembers the promise he made to protect him. Those memories force Tony to confront a truth he has been avoiding. Despite everything he has gained, he cannot ignore the people they lost. Meanwhile, Steve, Natasha, and Scott seek help from Bruce Banner. They explain the time travel concept and ask whether he can make it work. Bruce is fascinated by the idea and immediately agrees to try. Excited by the challenge, he begins conducting experiments using Scott as a test subject. Unfortunately, the results are far from successful. During a series of strange tests, Scott's age begins changing unpredictably. One moment he becomes an elderly man, the next he transforms into a child and then into a baby. Although the scenes provide some humor, they also demonstrate the enormous risks involved. Bruce admits that he understands the problem but has not yet found a solution. Time travel is proving far more complicated than anyone expected. Even so, the experiment confirms that manipulating time through the quantum realm may actually be possible. The challenge now is controlling it safely and accurately. Despite the setbacks, the group refuses to give up because they know this opportunity may be their only chance to bring everyone back. At the same time, Natasha decides that if there is even the slightest possibility of success, every surviving Avenger must be involved. She and Steve travel to New Asgard to recruit Thor. Upon arriving, they are shocked by what they find. The mighty god of thunder has become a shadow of his former self. He spends his days drinking, playing video games, and avoiding responsibility. His physical appearance has changed significantly, reflecting years of emotional pain and neglect. Although some moments are played for comedy, Steve and Natasha quickly realize how deeply Thor is suffering. When they mention the possibility of undoing the snap, Thor initially acts confident and enthusiastic, but beneath his excitement lies overwhelming guilt. He still blames himself for failing to stop Thanos. Every conversation eventually returns to that moment when he could have ended the conflict and chose the wrong target. Steve and Natasha reassure him that everyone made mistakes, but Thor struggles to believe them. Nevertheless, the possibility of fixing the past gives him something he has not felt in years: hope. After a brief hesitation, he agrees to join the mission. Natasha then turns her attention to Clint Barton. She finds him still operating as Ronin and tells him about the plan. At first, Clint can barely believe what he is hearing. For 5 years, he has lived with the pain of losing his wife and children. He has convinced himself that they are gone forever. The idea that he might see them again feels almost too good to be true. Natasha explains that nothing is guaranteed, but if they succeed, there is a chance to restore everyone who disappeared. The possibility immediately changes Clint's outlook. For the first time in years, he sees a reason to fight for something other than revenge. He agrees to return with Natasha and help the team. His decision reflects the bond they have shared since the earliest days of the Avengers. No matter how dark things become, they continue trusting each other. Eventually, Tony arrives at the Avengers headquarters carrying the solution everyone has been waiting for. He presents his completed time travel model and confirms that the mission can move forward. The room fills with cautious excitement. After years of failure and despair, the Avengers finally have a real plan. Tony also reconciles with Steve, ending much of the tension that has existed between them since their earlier disagreements. Both men understand that personal conflicts no longer matter. The fate of the universe is more important than old arguments. Working together once again, they begin preparing for what may be the most dangerous mission of their lives. Their objective is simple in theory but incredibly difficult in practice. Travel into the past, collect all six Infinity Stones before Thanos acquires them, and return to the present. If everything goes according to plan, they might be able to restore the billions of lives lost in the snap. As the team gathers around the table to discuss strategy, a feeling that has been absent for 5 years finally returns. It is not certainty, it is not victory, it is hope. And for the Avengers, hope may be the most powerful weapon they have left. With Tony Stark's time travel solution finally complete, the Avengers begin preparing for the most important mission in their history. The plan is incredibly risky. Instead of trying to change the past directly, they will travel to different points in time, collect the Infinity Stones before Thanos can obtain them, return to the present, and use the stones to reverse the snap. Bruce Banner explains that time travel does not work the way most people imagine. Traveling into the past will not erase their current reality. Instead, removing a stone from its timeline could create dangerous alternate realities. Because of this, every stone must eventually be returned to the exact moment it was taken. The explanation is complicated, but the team understands the basic objective. They only have enough Pym particles for a limited number of trips, meaning there is almost no room for mistakes. Every mission must succeed. The pressure is enormous because the fate of trillions of lives depends on what happens next. For the first time in years, however, the Avengers are united around a common goal. The hopelessness that defined the previous 5 years begins to fade as each member focuses on the task ahead. The team studies history carefully and identifies several moments in the past where multiple Infinity Stones can be obtained at once. To maximize efficiency, they divide into smaller groups. Tony Stark, Steve Rogers, Scott Lang, and Bruce Banner will travel to New York in 2012 during the events of the first Avengers movie. At that point in history, three Infinity Stones are located in the same city. Thor and Rocket will travel to Asgard in 2013 during the events surrounding Thor, the Dark World, where they can obtain the Reality Stone. Natasha Romanoff and Clint Barton will travel to Vormir, the mysterious planet where the Soul Stone is hidden. Meanwhile, James Rhodes and Nebula will travel to 2014 to secure the Power Stone before Thanos can obtain it. As they discuss the plan, everyone understands that this mission is unlike anything they have ever attempted. They are not simply fighting enemies. They are entering moments from their own past. Each destination carries emotional memories, painful experiences, and opportunities to confront regrets that have haunted them for years. After final preparations are completed, the Avengers gather around the quantum tunnel. The atmosphere is filled with anticipation and nervous energy. Scott Lang explains the procedure one final time while Bruce and Tony monitor the technology. Some members of the team joke to ease the tension, but everyone knows the risks involved. One mistake could leave them stranded in another timeline forever. As they activate their quantum suits and synchronize their devices, the team shares a final moment together. For many of them, there is no guarantee they will ever see each other again. Then, in an instant, the quantum tunnel activates, and the Avengers vanish into streams of energy, racing through time toward different eras of their lives. The mission that could save the universe has officially begun. Tony, Steve, Scott, and Bruce arrive in New York during the Battle of New York from the first Avengers film. The city is in chaos as alien forces attack from above, while the younger versions of the Avengers battle across the streets. For the team, the experience feels surreal. They are literally watching their former selves from a distance. Bruce heads toward the Sanctum Sanctorum to retrieve the Time Stone from the Ancient One, while Tony, Steve, and Scott focus on obtaining the Space Stone and Mind Stone. As they move through familiar locations, memories of the past come flooding back. Steve watches his younger self leading civilians to safety. Tony observes the reckless confidence he once possessed before years of hardship transformed him. The mission requires them to stay focused, but seeing their past selves reminds them how much they have changed since those early days. Bruce's mission quickly becomes more complicated than expected. When he meets the Ancient One, she refuses to hand over the Time Stone. She explains that removing the stone from her timeline could create catastrophic consequences. Without it, dark forces could overwhelm reality and destroy countless lives. Bruce argues that they intend to return every stone after their mission is complete, ensuring that no timeline remains damaged. The Ancient One remains skeptical until Bruce reveals that Doctor Strange willingly gave the Time Stone to Thanos during the events of Infinity War. Shocked by this information, she realizes that if Strange made such a decision, there must have been a reason. Trusting Strange's judgment, she finally agrees to give Bruce the stone. The exchange highlights the complexity of the Avengers' mission and demonstrates that even their allies do not fully understand the consequences of manipulating time. Meanwhile, Tony, Steve, and Scott attempt to secure the Space Stone following Loki's defeat. Their plan initially works perfectly. Everything appears to be proceeding according to schedule. However, a series of unexpected events creates disaster. During a brief moment of confusion involving the Hulk from 2012, the Space Stone accidentally falls into Loki's possession. Seizing the opportunity, Loki activates the Tesseract and instantly disappears. The Avengers are left stunned. Their carefully constructed plan has collapsed in seconds. Not only have they failed to secure the stone, but Loki has now escaped into an unknown timeline. The setback creates immediate panic because they no longer have enough resources to simply repeat the mission. Years of planning seem on the verge of falling apart due to a single mistake. Tony and Steve realize they must think quickly if they want to save the operation. After assessing their options, Tony remembers another opportunity. Both the Space Stone and additional Pym particles existed at a military base in 1970. If they travel there, they can solve two problems at once. Steve immediately agrees, and the two heroes prepare for an unscheduled jump further into the past. Before leaving, they ensure that Scott successfully secures the Mind Stone, preventing the entire mission from becoming a total failure. Although frustrated by the setback, Tony and Steve understand that adapting to unexpected situations has always been part of being an Avenger. The difference now is that failure could mean the permanent loss of half the universe. As they activate their devices and disappear once again into the quantum realm, the stakes feel higher than ever. Elsewhere in 2014, Rhodey and Nebula arrive on Morag just before Peter Quill obtains the Power Stone. Hidden from view, they watch Quill dancing and singing across the abandoned planet, completely unaware of the cosmic events surrounding him. Their mission appears straightforward. All they need to do is wait for the correct moment and take the stone before anyone notices. However, a problem emerges that nobody anticipated. Because Nebula's cybernetic implants are linked to technology from 2014, her presence begins interfering with the memories and systems of her past self. Across the galaxy, the younger Nebula suddenly experiences strange visions connected to the future. Those visions attract the attention of Thanos himself. As he examines the mysterious data, he begins seeing fragments of future events. For the first time, Thanos becomes aware that something unusual is happening. He does not yet understand the entire situation, but he realizes that visitors from the future may be interfering with destiny. Unknown to the Avengers, their greatest enemy has just begun uncovering their plan, and the consequences will soon threaten everything they are trying to achieve. As the Avengers continue their mission across different points in time, none of them realize that Thanos has started uncovering the truth. In the year 2014, the younger version of Nebula experiences strange glitches caused by the presence of her future self. Because both versions share similar cybernetic systems, fragments of memories begin crossing between them. What starts as a technical malfunction quickly becomes something far more dangerous. Thanos and his loyal followers, including Ebony Maw, access these unexpected recordings and witness scenes from the future. They see the destruction of the Infinity Stones, the death of Thanos at the hands of Thor, and the Avengers' desperate attempt to undo the snap. For the first time, Thanos learns exactly what lies ahead. Most people would be horrified to discover their own death, but Thanos reacts differently. He studies the information calmly, analyzing every detail. Rather than becoming angry, he becomes fascinated. The future reveals that he succeeds in wiping out half of all life, but it also shows that the survivors never accept his victory. Even after losing everything, they continue fighting to reverse his work. To Thanos, this proves that his mission was incomplete. He begins believing that the universe will never truly be grateful for his actions as long as people remember what they lost. This realization plants a far more dangerous idea in his mind. While Thanos develops his new plan, Rhodey successfully acquires the Power Stone from Morag. The mission itself goes smoothly, and for a brief moment it seems like one of the Avengers' easiest victories. However, the situation changes dramatically when the future Nebula becomes trapped within the network connection linking her to her younger counterpart. Unable to escape the interference, she is captured by Thanos and his forces. As they examine her memories, every detail of the Avengers' operation becomes visible. Thanos now understands exactly how time travel works, where the Infinity Stones are being collected, and what the heroes intend to do once they return to the future. The captured Nebula fights to resist, but she can do little against the combined intelligence of Thanos and Ebony Maw. Meanwhile, the younger Nebula is manipulated into helping Thanos infiltrate the Avengers' plan. The villain has transformed from a target being hunted by the heroes into a strategist preparing a devastating counterattack. The balance of power begins shifting in a way that none of the Avengers can see.
Elsewhere, Thor and Rocket arrive in Asgard during the events of Thor the Dark World. For Rocket, the mission is simple. He only needs to extract the Reality Stone, which is currently hidden inside Jane Foster. Thor, however, faces a far more emotional challenge. Returning to Asgard forces him to confront painful memories from a time before his mother's death. Since losing his family and failing to stop Thanos, Thor has been consumed by guilt and self hatred. Seeing his home again brings those emotions rushing back. At first, he tries to avoid everyone and focus solely on the mission, but fate has other plans. While wandering through the palace, he unexpectedly encounters his mother, Frigga. Because of her wisdom and understanding, she immediately senses that something is wrong. Thor attempts to hide the truth, but Frigga sees through him. She recognizes the sadness in his eyes and realizes that he is carrying a burden far greater than he can handle alone. Their conversation becomes one of the most emotional moments in the entire story. Thor finally admits how broken he feels. He speaks about his failures, the people he could not save, and the overwhelming guilt that has haunted him for years. Unlike many others, Frigga does not judge him or try to dismiss his pain. Instead, she listens carefully and reminds him that everyone fails at some point in life. She explains that true strength is not about avoiding failure, but about learning how to rise after falling. Her words reach Thor in a way that nothing else has since the snap. For years, he has viewed himself as a failure unworthy of being a hero. Now, for the first time, someone helps him understand that his mistakes do not define who he is. Before leaving, Thor performs one final test. He extends his hand and calls for Mjolnir, the enchanted hammer he once wielded. When the hammer flies into his grasp, relief floods across his face. Despite everything that has happened, he is still worthy. The moment restores a piece of the confidence he thought he had lost forever. At the same time, Natasha Romanoff and Clint Barton arrive on the mysterious planet Vormir in search of the Soul Stone. Upon reaching the summit, they encounter the guardian of the stone, the Red Skull. Once one of Captain America's greatest enemies, he now serves as the keeper of this powerful artifact. Red Skull explains the terrible price required to obtain the Soul Stone. Unlike the other Infinity Stones, it cannot simply be taken, it demands a sacrifice. To possess the stone, a person must lose someone they truly love. At first, Clint and Natasha refuse to believe him. They search for another solution, convinced there must be some way around the requirement. But the truth soon becomes unavoidable. One of them must die so the other can complete the mission. The realization hits them like a nightmare. After everything they have survived together, they are now being forced to choose between their own lives and the chance to save the universe. What follows is not an argument about who should survive, but a struggle over who should make the sacrifice. Natasha believes Clint deserves to live because he still has a family waiting for him if the snap is reversed. Clint argues that Natasha has spent years sacrificing everything for others and deserves the chance to keep living. Both are determined to give their own life rather than allow the other to die. Their friendship, built over years of battles and shared hardships, becomes painfully clear in this moment. Neither can imagine a future without the other. Yet, they also know that without the Soul Stone, billions of lives will remain lost forever. Eventually, their desperate struggle ends in tragedy. Natasha sacrifices herself, ensuring that Clint obtains the Soul Stone and the mission can continue. As Clint awakens with the stone in his possession, the weight of what has happened crashes down upon him. He has secured one of the most powerful objects in existence, but the cost is the loss of one of his closest friends. The victory feels empty because it has been purchased with unimaginable pain. As the various teams begin completing their objectives and preparing to return home, the emotional toll of the mission becomes increasingly apparent. Thor carries renewed hope thanks to his mother's guidance. Clint carries devastating grief after losing Natasha. Rhodey successfully holds the Power Stone, unaware that Thanos has already started executing a plan that could destroy everything. Tony and Steve continue navigating the past, searching for the final resources they need. Across multiple timelines, the Avengers appear to be winning. One by one, the Infinity Stones are falling into their hands. Yet, hidden behind these successes is a growing threat. The younger Thanos now possesses knowledge of the future and a strategy more dangerous than anything he attempted before. While the Avengers focus on completing their mission, their greatest enemy is preparing to follow them into the future. And when he arrives, the final battle for the fate of the universe will begin. As the mission continues across time, Tony Stark and Steve Rogers arrive at a military facility in the year 1970. Their original plan in New York had failed when Loki escaped with the Tesseract, forcing them to take a huge risk and travel even further into the past. Fortunately, this base contains both the Space Stone and extra Pym particles, giving them a chance to save the mission. Even so, the situation is extremely dangerous. Unlike the Battle of New York, where chaos provided cover, this facility is heavily guarded. One mistake could expose them and alter history forever. Tony and Steve split up to improve their chances of success. Steve heads toward the laboratory storing the Pym particles, while Tony makes his way toward the area containing the Tesseract. As they move through the halls, both men are surrounded by ghosts of the past. They are walking through a period of history that shaped who they became, and the experience forces them to confront memories they have carried for decades. For Tony, the journey becomes deeply personal. While searching the facility, he unexpectedly encounters his father, Howard Stark. At first, Tony is shocked. Howard died years ago, and their relationship had always been complicated. Growing up, Tony often believed his father cared more about work than family. Many of his insecurities and emotional struggles originated from that belief. Now, standing face to face with a younger version of Howard, Tony finds himself in a situation he never imagined possible. Because revealing the truth would be dangerous, he pretends to be an employee visiting the facility. During their conversation, Howard speaks openly about his concerns regarding fatherhood. He explains that his wife is expecting a child soon and admits that he feels nervous about becoming a parent. Listening to these worries, Tony realizes something important. For most of his life, he viewed Howard only through the lens of disappointment and misunderstanding. Now he sees a man trying his best despite his fears and imperfections. The encounter gives Tony a new perspective on his father and allows him to find a sense of peace that had eluded him for years. Their conversation becomes one of the most meaningful moments in Tony's life. Howard unknowingly asks Tony for advice about being a father. The irony is powerful because Tony himself now has a daughter. Drawing from his own experiences with Morgan, Tony tells Howard that no amount of preparation can fully prepare someone for parenthood. All a father can do is try his best and hope it is enough. Although Howard never learns the true identity of the man standing before him, the exchange creates a connection that neither of them expected. Before leaving, Tony shares a heartfelt goodbye and embraces his father. The moment carries tremendous emotional weight because Tony finally receives the opportunity he never had in his own timeline, a chance to say goodbye properly. As he walks away with the Tesseract secured, he carries more than just an infinity stone. He carries a sense of closure that has been missing from his life for many years. Meanwhile, Steve Rogers faces his own emotional challenge. While retrieving the PIM particles, he catches a glimpse of Peggy Carter through a nearby window. Decades have passed since Steve lost the chance to build a life with her. Despite everything he has accomplished as Captain America, a part of him has always wondered what might have happened if circumstances had been different. Seeing Peggy again reminds him of the future he sacrificed in order to serve others. He watches quietly from a distance, knowing he cannot reveal himself or interfere with history. The moment is bittersweet. Peggy appears happy, continuing her work and helping shape the world, while Steve remains an outsider looking in. For a brief moment, he allows himself to imagine what life might have been like if he had stayed with her. Then, understanding that the mission must come first, he turns away and rejoins Tony. Together, they secure everything they need and prepare to return to the future. Back in 2013, Asgard, Thor, and Rocket successfully complete their mission as well. Rocket extracts the Reality Stone from Jane Foster, and Thor departs carrying both renewed confidence and Mjolnir. The conversation with Frigga has transformed him. While he still feels pain and regret, he no longer views himself as a failure. For years, Thor believed his mistakes defined him. His mother's wisdom helped him understand that even heroes are imperfect. The lesson restores a part of his identity that had been lost since the events of Infinity War. As he prepares to return to the present, Thor feels something he has not experienced in a very long time: belief in himself. That renewed confidence will prove crucial in the battles ahead. On Vormir, however, the situation remains heartbreaking. Clint Barton returns carrying the Soul Stone, but Natasha Romanoff is gone. When the Avengers regroup in the present, they immediately notice her absence. Clint struggles to explain what happened. The pain is overwhelming because Natasha was not merely a teammate, she was family. Bruce Banner, who had developed deep feelings for Natasha over the years, is particularly devastated by the news. The realization that her sacrifice cannot be undone strikes everyone hard. They have spent years searching for a way to reverse loss, yet Natasha's death represents a painful reminder that some sacrifices are permanent. The team mourns together, understanding that the mission's success has already demanded a terrible price. Despite their grief, the Avengers now possess all six Infinity Stones. For the first time since Thanos snapped his fingers, genuine hope exists. Tony, Bruce, Thor, Steve, Clint, Rocket, and the others gather around the completed nano gauntlet designed to channel the stone's immense power. The question quickly becomes, who should wield it? The energy released by the stones is powerful enough to kill almost anyone instantly. Thor volunteers, insisting that he should be the one to perform the snap. However, the others recognize that he is still emotionally unstable and may not be thinking clearly. After careful discussion, Bruce Banner steps forward. Because his body was created through exposure to gamma radiation, the same type of energy emitted by the stones, he has the best chance of surviving the process. Even so, survival is far from guaranteed. Everyone understands that using the stones may cost Bruce his life. As Bruce places the nano gauntlet on his arm, unimaginable pain surges through his body. The energy is so powerful that it nearly overwhelms him immediately. Every member of the team watches anxiously, knowing that the fate of the universe rests on what happens next. Bruce struggles to maintain control while focusing on a single goal: bringing back everyone who vanished during the snap. He remembers the countless lives destroyed, the families separated, and the friends they lost. Then, summoning every ounce of strength he possesses, Bruce snaps his fingers. A massive wave of energy erupts through the headquarters. The gauntlet is damaged. Bruce collapses in agony, and silence fills the room. For several terrifying seconds, nothing seems to happen. The Avengers stare at one another, uncertain whether the plan worked. Then signs begin appearing that suggest the impossible has become reality. Life is returning. But before the team can celebrate, disaster strikes. Hidden within the timeline, the younger Nebula has already infiltrated the Avengers operation under Thanos' orders. Using advanced technology, she opens a portal connecting 2014 to the present day. Through that portal comes the greatest threat the Avengers have ever faced. Thanos has arrived. Not the very version who completed his mission, but the younger, more ruthless conqueror at the height of his power. Without warning, his massive warship appears above the Avengers' headquarters and unleashes a devastating bombardment. Explosions tear through the compound, collapsing buildings and burying heroes beneath mountains of debris. The celebration ends before it can begin. The Infinity Stones have been recovered, the snap has been reversed, and billions may have returned to life. Yet, the final battle is only beginning. Standing amid the destruction, Thanos prepares to claim victory once again, and the fate of the entire universe hangs in the balance. The Avengers' headquarters lies in ruins. Moments earlier, the heroes believed they had finally succeeded. Bruce Banner had used the Infinity Stones to reverse the snap, and after 5 years of suffering, there was hope that billions of lives had been restored. But before anyone could celebrate, Thanos launched a devastating attack from his massive warship. The entire compound was reduced to rubble within seconds. Explosions ripped through every level of the facility, collapsing walls, destroying equipment, and burying many of the heroes beneath mountains of debris. Confusion and chaos spread everywhere. No one knows who survived or where the Infinity Stones ended up. The victory that seemed so close suddenly feels fragile once again. Deep beneath the wreckage, Tony Stark struggles to regain his footing, while Steve Rogers and Thor attempt to understand what just happened. Across the battlefield, Bruce is trapped under collapsed structures, fighting to keep tons of debris from crushing Rocket and Rhodey. The situation is desperate, and for a brief moment it appears that Thanos may have already won. Outside the ruins, the Mad Titan calmly walks toward the battlefield. This version of Thanos is different from the one the Avengers fought in Infinity War. He has not spent years carrying out his mission. He has not sacrificed Gamora or endured the pain of achieving his goal. Instead, he is a conqueror at the height of his power, armed with knowledge of the future and determined to prevent his defeat. After learning that the Avengers eventually undo his victory, Thanos reaches a terrifying conclusion. He decides that simply eliminating half of all life is not enough. As long as people remember what they lost, they will always resist him. Therefore, he plans to destroy the entire universe and create a new one from scratch, a universe whose inhabitants will never know that another reality existed before it. In his mind, this is the only way to achieve true balance. The plan is more extreme than anything he attempted before, proving that knowledge of the future has made him even more dangerous. He sits calmly among the ruins, waiting for the Avengers to come to him because he knows they have no choice.
Steve Rogers, Tony Stark, and Thor eventually emerge from the destruction and confront Thanos together. For years, fans dreamed of seeing the three original Avengers united against their greatest enemy, and now that moment has arrived. Despite their injuries and exhaustion, they understand that nobody else can stop him. The Infinity Stones are somewhere within the battlefield, and if Thanos reaches them first, the universe will be doomed. The three heroes exchange determined looks before charging into battle. What follows is one of the most spectacular fights in Marvel history. Thor attacks first using Stormbreaker and Mjolnir simultaneously, unleashing devastating lightning strikes. Tony supports him with advanced Iron Man weaponry, while Steve uses his shield to create openings and coordinate attacks. For a brief period, their teamwork overwhelms Thanos. The battle demonstrates why these heroes have been the heart of the Avengers for so many years. Together, they push harder than ever before, refusing to surrender despite impossible odds. However, Thanos proves just as formidable as ever. Armed with his double bladed weapon and incredible strength, he systematically counters every attack. He disarms Thor, overpowers Tony, and eventually gains the upper hand. Even without the Infinity Stones, he remains one of the most dangerous beings in existence. The battle grows increasingly brutal as each hero is pushed to their limits. Tony's armor sustains heavy damage. Thor struggles to keep fighting after years of physical and emotional decline. Steve absorbs punishment that would defeat almost anyone else. Yet none of them retreat. They continue fighting because they know that failure would mean the end of everything they are trying to save. Eventually, Thanos knocks both Tony and Thor aside, leaving Steve Rogers standing alone. The situation appears hopeless. Across the battlefield, enemy forces begin gathering behind Thanos, while the surviving heroes remain scattered and injured. For the first time since the fight began, it seems clear that the Avengers are losing. Steve looks around at the devastation surrounding him. His shield is broken. His allies are wounded. Enemy armies stretch across the horizon. Any normal person would accept defeat, but Steve Rogers has never been an ordinary person. Slowly, he rises to his feet and tightens the straps of his damaged shield. The image perfectly captures everything Captain America represents. He knows he cannot win alone, yet he chooses to fight anyway. It is not confidence that drives him, but determination. Steve has spent his entire life standing against impossible odds, and he refuses to stop now. As Thanos commands his army forward, Steve prepares for what may be his final stand. The moment is emotional because it reflects the essence of his character. He is willing to face an entire army by himself if that is what protecting others requires. Then something incredible happens. Through his communication device, Steve hears a familiar voice. It is Sam Wilson, also known as Falcon. The message is simple but powerful. On your left. Suddenly, glowing portals begin opening across the battlefield. One by one, heroes thought lost forever emerge from them. Doctor Strange appears alongside the masters of the mystic arts. Black Panther leads the warriors of Wakanda. Spider-Man returns after 5 years of absence. Scarlet Witch, Winter Soldier, Falcon, Star-Lord, Drax, Groot, Mantis, Valkyrie, and countless others step onto the battlefield. The scene represents the payoff to everything the Avengers have fought for. Bruce's snap worked. Everyone who disappeared has returned. What moments earlier looked like certain defeat transforms into a gathering of heroes unlike anything the universe has ever seen. Steve gazes across the assembled forces, overwhelmed by relief and renewed hope. As the heroes prepare for battle, Doctor Strange silently signals to Tony Stark that there is only one path to victory. During the events of Infinity War, Strange viewed millions of possible futures and discovered only one scenario in which the Avengers ultimately win. Tony remembers that conversation immediately. The realization hangs heavily between them because neither man knows exactly how events will unfold from this point forward. Yet they both understand that every action now matters. The fate of existence itself depends on the choices made during the next few minutes. Captain America finally steps forward and delivers the command that fans had waited years to hear. Looking across the assembled heroes, he declares, "Avengers, assemble." Instantly, thousands of warriors charge into battle. The battlefield erupts into chaos as heroes and villains collide from every direction. Wakandan soldiers clash with alien creatures. Sorcerers unleash magical attacks against enemy warships. Spider-Man swings through explosions while Giant Man towers above the battlefield. The scale of the conflict surpasses anything seen before in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Every hero who has fought throughout the series now stands together against a common enemy. Yet amid the excitement and spectacle, one crucial objective remains unchanged. The Infinity Stones must be protected at all costs. Thanos cannot be allowed to reach them. As the greatest battle in the history of the universe begins, every hero understands that the next few moments will determine the fate of all existence. The war that started years earlier is finally approaching its conclusion. The battlefield explodes into chaos as heroes from every corner of the universe charge against Thanos and his enormous army. After 5 years of loss and suffering, the Avengers are finally united once again. Wakandan warriors race across the battlefield beside Asgardian soldiers. Sorcerers from Kamartaj open magical portals while alien creatures swarm forward under Thanos' command. The scale of the conflict is unlike anything seen before. Every major hero who survived the events of the Marvel Cinematic Universe is now fighting in the same place at the same time. Yet, despite the countless battles happening around them, everyone understands that one objective matters above all others: keeping the Infinity Stones away from Thanos. If he reaches them, the entire universe will be doomed. The nano gauntlet containing all six stones becomes the most important object on the battlefield, and immediately both sides begin fighting to control it. While thousands of warriors clash around them, a desperate race begins that will determine the future of existence itself. Amid the chaos, Clint Barton finds himself carrying the nano gauntlet. Having already lost Natasha during the mission to Vormir, Clint is determined not to let her sacrifice be wasted. He races through the ruins while enemy forces pursue him from every direction. Explosions shake the ground as monstrous creatures close in around him. Despite being exhausted and injured, Clint refuses to stop moving. Every step reminds him why he is fighting. Natasha gave her life so they could obtain the Soul Stone. If Thanos gains the stones now, her sacrifice will have meant nothing. Clint uses every skill he possesses to stay ahead of his pursuers, firing arrows, dodging attacks, and navigating through the battlefield with remarkable precision. Eventually, he encounters Black Panther, who takes possession of the gauntlet and continues the mission. The transfer represents the teamwork that has always defined the Avengers. No single hero can win this battle alone. Success depends on everyone working together toward the same goal. As the fight intensifies, Wanda Maximoff finally comes face to face with Thanos. Among all the heroes on the battlefield, Wanda may have the strongest personal reason to hate him. She lost Vision because of Thanos' quest for the Infinity Stones, and the pain of that loss has remained with her ever since. When she confronts him, it quickly becomes clear that she is one of the few heroes capable of matching his power. Using her incredible abilities, Wanda overwhelms Thanos in a way that no one else has managed. She tears apart his armor, lifts him into the air, and forces him onto the defensive. For perhaps the first time, Thanos appears genuinely afraid. The battle demonstrates just how powerful Wanda has become since her introduction. Consumed by grief and anger, she unleashes her full strength against the man responsible for so much suffering. Thanos realizes that he cannot defeat her through direct combat. In desperation, he orders his warship to fire upon the battlefield, even though many of his own troops remain below. Massive explosions rain down from the sky, forcing Wanda and the other heroes to retreat. Once again, Thanos escapes destruction through sheer ruthlessness. Meanwhile, Peter Parker receives one of the most important responsibilities in the battle. The heroes develop a plan to send the Infinity Stones back through the quantum tunnel, preventing Thanos from obtaining them. Spider-Man takes possession of the nano gauntlet and begins racing toward the tunnel while enemy forces swarm around him. Despite his courage, the task quickly becomes overwhelming. Peter is still young, and the battlefield is filled with dangers far beyond anything he has faced before. Just as it appears that he may be overwhelmed, help arrives from an unexpected source. Captain Marvel returns to Earth after responding to crises across the galaxy. Her arrival immediately changes the balance of power. She destroys enemy warships with ease and clears a path through the battlefield. Taking the gauntlet from Peter, she moves toward the quantum tunnel with incredible speed. For a moment, victory seems within reach. The heroes have survived countless obstacles and the stones are close to safety. However, Thanos refuses to surrender. He intercepts Captain Marvel and engages her directly. Their confrontation becomes one of the most intense encounters in the entire battle. Unlike most opponents, Captain Marvel possesses enough power to challenge Thanos head on. The two exchange devastating attacks that shake the battlefield around them. At one point, Captain Marvel appears to gain the advantage, resisting even the power of the Infinity Stones themselves. Yet Thanos remains resourceful. Using the Power Stone, he unleashes a massive blast that sends her flying across the battlefield. The attack creates just enough time for him to reclaim the Nano Gauntlet. The moment sends shockwaves through the heroes. After fighting so hard to protect the stones, they watch in horror as Thanos finally obtains the object he has been pursuing throughout the battle. Everything now comes down to whether they can stop him before he uses it. As the battle reaches its climax, chaos surrounds the Nano Gauntlet. Heroes and villains collide from every direction, each trying to control the fate of the universe. Thor, Steve Rogers, and Tony Stark launch desperate attacks against Thanos, hoping to prevent him from completing his mission. Every second becomes more critical than the last. The battlefield that once felt enormous now seems to narrow around a single objective, stopping Thanos from snapping his fingers. The emotional weight of the moment is immense because everyone understands what is at stake. They have sacrificed friends, family members, and years of their lives to reach this point. Failure would erase every sacrifice and condemn existence itself. Even as injuries accumulate and exhaustion overwhelms them, the heroes continue fighting because there is no alternative. During the chaos, Doctor Strange catches Tony Stark's attention. For a brief moment, their eyes meet across the battlefield. Strange raises a single finger, silently reminding Tony of the conversation they shared years earlier. Out of millions of possible futures, there was only one path that led to victory. Tony immediately understands what the gesture means. The moment he has feared and perhaps expected has finally arrived. Everything that has happened since the beginning of the battle has been leading toward a single decision. Tony looks around at his friends, his teammates, and the heroes fighting beside him. He thinks about Pepper, Morgan, Peter Parker, and everyone who depends on the Avengers to succeed. The realization settles over him with heartbreaking clarity. He knows exactly what must happen next. As Thanos prepares to claim ultimate victory and erase the universe forever, Tony Stark prepares to make the greatest sacrifice of his life. The final moments of the war are approaching, and the destiny of the entire universe rests in the hands of one man. The final moments of the battle arrive with breathtaking intensity. Across the battlefield, heroes and villains continue fighting desperately while all attention focuses on Thanos and the Infinity Gauntlet. After countless sacrifices, endless struggles, and years of pain, everything has come down to a single moment. Thanos finally gains possession of the Nano Gauntlet and begins placing it on his hand. Around him, the Avengers launch desperate attacks, hoping to stop him before it is too late. Thor, Steve Rogers, Captain Marvel, and numerous others throw everything they have at the Mad Titan. Yet Thanos has always been at his most dangerous when victory seems within reach. Despite being surrounded by enemies, he remains focused on his objective. He knows that one snap of his fingers is all it will take to reshape reality forever. Around him, the battlefield grows strangely tense, as though the universe itself is holding its breath. Every sacrifice made since the beginning of the story has led to this exact point. The fate of all existence hangs on what happens during the next few seconds. Thanos confidently declares that after destroying the current universe, he will create a new one. In this new reality, no one will remember loss, pain, or the lives that came before. He believes this will finally create the balance he has always sought. Unlike earlier versions of his plan, this vision is absolute. Rather than eliminating half of life, he intends to erase everything and begin again. The statement reveals just how dangerous he has become. The knowledge gained from the future has convinced him that mercy is ineffective. If people remember what they lost, they will always resist him. Therefore, he believes total destruction is the only solution. As he speaks, the heroes realize that failure now would mean far more than death. Entire civilizations, histories, cultures, and worlds would disappear forever. Everything that has ever existed would be replaced by a reality designed according to Thanos' will. The stakes have never been higher. Then Thanos snaps his fingers. Nothing happens. For a brief moment, confusion appears on his face. The expected burst of cosmic energy never arrives. He looks down at the nano gauntlet and discovers something impossible. The Infinity Stones are gone. In the middle of the chaos, Tony Stark had executed a plan so bold and so precise that almost nobody noticed it happening. Using the advanced nanotechnology of his Iron Man armor, Tony secretly transferred the Infinity Stones from the gauntlet onto his own suit during their struggle. While Thanos believed victory was certain, Tony had quietly stolen the most powerful objects in the universe. The realization hits Thanos instantly. For the first time in the battle, he understands that he has been outmaneuvered. Years earlier, Tony Stark was a selfish billionaire concerned primarily with himself. Now he stands before the greatest threat in existence, carrying the weight of the entire universe on his shoulders.
As the energy of the stones surges through Tony's body, the consequences become immediately visible. Human beings were never meant to channel such immense power. Lightning like energy spreads across his armor and burns through his body. Every second causes unimaginable pain. Yet, Tony remains standing. He looks directly at Thanos and remembers everything that brought him to this moment. He remembers the Battle of New York, where his fear of alien invasion first began. He remembers Ultron, Civil War, the loss of Peter Parker, and the countless sacrifices made by his friends. Most importantly, he remembers Morgan and the peaceful life he built after the snap. Tony understands that using the stones will almost certainly kill him. He also understands that there is no other way. Doctor Strange's signal finally makes complete sense. Out of millions of possible futures, this was the one path leading to victory. Every choice, every sacrifice, and every battle had been guiding him towards this moment. Thanos stares at Tony with growing disbelief. For years, he viewed himself as the only person willing to make difficult sacrifices for what he believed was the greater good. Now he is confronted by someone prepared to sacrifice everything to stop him. The contrast between the two men could not be clearer. Thanos destroys lives, believing he's saving the universe. Tony is willing to give his own life to protect it. As the energy intensifies, Tony raises his hand and delivers the line that perfectly concludes his journey. Years earlier, during a press conference that changed his life forever, Tony proudly declared, I am Iron Man. Now, standing at the edge of death, he repeats those same words. This time, however, they carry a completely different meaning. The statement is not about ego or fame, it is about responsibility, sacrifice, and accepting the consequences of doing what is right. Tony snaps his fingers. A massive wave of energy erupts across the battlefield. The effect is immediate. Thanos' army begins turning to dust. Soldiers, creatures, war machines, and commanders all vanish one by one. The process mirrors the snap that devastated the universe years earlier, but now it serves a different purpose. Instead of destroying innocent lives, it eliminates the forces threatening reality itself. Thanos watches helplessly as everything he fought for disappears around him. His dream of reshaping the universe collapses before his eyes. Unlike his earlier victory, there is no satisfaction or triumph, there is only defeat. Slowly, the mad titan sits down among the ruins and accepts his fate. For the first time, he has no plan, no weapon, and no path to victory. Moments later, he turns to dust and disappears forever. The war that began years ago has finally ended. Across the battlefield, celebration quickly gives way to concern. The heroes realize that Tony has paid a terrible price for victory. The energy from the Infinity Stones has inflicted catastrophic damage on his body. His armor is barely functioning, and he struggles to remain conscious. One by one, his friends gather around him. Peter Parker arrives first, overwhelmed with emotion. Having already lost Tony once during the events of the snap, Peter desperately hopes there is still a chance to save him. He talks to Tony, trying to reassure him, but the damage is too severe. Soon, Pepper Potts kneels beside her husband. Unlike everyone else, she immediately understands the reality of the situation. Tony has done what he always feared he might one day have to do. He saved the world at the cost of his own life. The final conversation between Tony and Pepper is heartbreaking. Pepper gently tells him that everything will be okay. She assures him that they will be all right and that he can finally rest. Those simple words carry enormous emotional weight because Tony spent much of his life believing that protecting the world was solely his responsibility. Now, at the end of his journey, someone he loves is giving him permission to let go. Surrounded by friends, family, and teammates, Tony Stark takes his final breath. The man who began as an arrogant genius has become one of the greatest heroes in history. His sacrifice saves not only Earth, but the entire universe. As silence falls over the battlefield, the Avengers understand that they have won. Yet the victory feels bittersweet because it has cost them one of their most important heroes. The battle is over. Thanos is gone, and the universe has been saved. But the story of Tony Stark is coming to an end, leaving behind a legacy that will never be forgotten. The battle against Thanos is finally over. After years of conflict, sacrifice, and unimaginable loss, the universe has been saved. Yet, as the dust settles across the battlefield, there is no celebration. The heroes stand silently among the ruins of the Avengers' headquarters, trying to process everything that has happened. They achieved the impossible. The billions of lives erased by the snap have been restored, and the greatest threat in existence has been defeated forever. But victory came at an enormous cost. Tony Stark, the man whose journey began the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe, is gone. His final sacrifice ensured the survival of countless worlds, but it also left behind a painful emptiness that can never truly be filled. The heroes who remain understand that they are witnessing the end of an era. Nothing will ever be the same again. For many of them, Tony was more than a teammate. He was a friend, a mentor, and a symbol of what it meant to keep fighting, even when the odds seemed impossible. In the days that follow, Tony's loved ones gather to honor his memory. The funeral takes place beside the peaceful lake near his home, far from the chaos of battle. Unlike the massive conflicts that defined so much of Tony's life, this moment is quiet and deeply personal. Heroes from across the universe arrive to pay their respects. Steve Rogers, Thor, Bruce Banner, Clint Barton, Peter Parker, Wanda Maximoff, Doctor Strange, Sam Wilson, Bucky Barnes, Nick Fury, and many others stand together in silence. Each person present represents a life touched by Tony's courage and sacrifice. Pepper Potts places a small device into the water, the same arc reactor that once kept Tony alive. Attached to it is a message that reads, "Proof that Tony Stark has a heart." The tribute serves as a reminder of how far he came. Years earlier, many people viewed Tony as selfish and irresponsible. By the end of his journey, he had become one of the most selfless heroes the world had ever known. As the reactor drifts across the lake, everyone reflects on the extraordinary legacy he leaves behind. Among those mourning Tony is Peter Parker, who struggles deeply with the loss. Tony had become a father figure to him, guiding him through some of the most important moments of his young life. Losing him feels almost unbearable. Yet, Peter also understands something important. Tony's sacrifice was not made out of despair or obligation, it was made out of love. Tony chose to protect the people he cared about, even when doing so required the ultimate price. That lesson becomes part of Peter's future and helps shape the hero he will become. Across the gathering, countless others carry similar feelings. Every hero present has been changed by Tony Stark in one way or another. His influence will continue long after his death because the values he fought for now live on through those he inspired. After the funeral, attention turns toward another important responsibility. The Infinity Stones must be returned to their original timelines. During the mission, Bruce Banner explained that removing the stones could create dangerous alternate realities. To prevent this, someone must travel through time and place each stone back at the exact moment it was taken. Steve Rogers volunteers for the task. Having spent his entire life serving others, Steve sees this as one final mission. The plan appears straightforward. He will return the stones, come back to the present, and rejoin his friends. Bruce, Sam, and Bucky prepare the quantum tunnel while the others watch. Steve shares a few final words with his teammates before stepping onto the platform. Then, carrying the Infinity Stones and Mjolnir, he disappears into time. Everyone expects him to return within seconds, but when the machine activates again, Steve does not reappear. Confused, Sam and Bruce search for answers. Moments later, Bucky notices an elderly man sitting quietly on a nearby bench. The realization quickly spreads across the group. Instead of returning immediately after completing his mission, Steve chose a different path. After spending a lifetime sacrificing his own happiness for the sake of others, he finally decided to live the life he never had the chance to experience. Rather than returning to the present, he remained in the past and reunited with Peggy Carter. For decades, Steve dreamed about the future he lost when he crashed into the Arctic during World War II. Now, at last, he allowed himself to have it. The old man sitting on the bench is the result of that decision. He lived a full life, grew old, and eventually returned to this moment to say goodbye to his friends. The scene between Steve and Sam Wilson becomes one of the most emotional in the entire film. Steve explains that after everything he experienced, he wanted to try living a normal life. Looking at him, Sam realizes that Steve finally found the peace he had been denied for so many years. Then Steve presents Sam with something incredibly important: his shield. The gesture represents far more than simply passing along a weapon, it is the transfer of a legacy. Steve believes that Sam possesses the qualities necessary to become the next Captain America. Sam is surprised, humbled, and uncertain whether he deserves such an honor. Yet Steve's confidence in him is unwavering. The moment symbolizes the future of heroism. Although one generation is stepping aside, another is ready to continue the mission. Sam accepts the shield, understanding the responsibility that comes with it. Meanwhile, Thor reaches a decision of his own. Throughout the movie, he struggles with guilt, failure, and questions about his identity. By the end of the story, however, he has rediscovered a sense of purpose. Rather than remaining in New Asgard as king, Thor appoints Valkyrie as the new ruler. He recognizes that leadership is not where his heart truly belongs. Instead, he chooses to explore the universe alongside the Guardians of the Galaxy. The decision reflects his growth as a character. For years, Thor believed he needed to fit a specific image of what a king or hero should be. Now he understands that finding his own path is more important. His departure marks the beginning of a new chapter filled with possibilities and adventures yet to come. As the movie approaches its conclusion, the focus shifts from endings to beginnings. The Avengers who remain are forever changed by everything they endured. Natasha Romanoff and Tony Stark are gone, but their sacrifices saved countless lives. Steve Rogers has finally found peace. Thor has discovered a new purpose. Sam Wilson is preparing to carry the Captain America legacy into the future. Across the universe, families reunite after 5 years of separation. Friends embrace once more. Entire civilizations begin rebuilding after the devastation caused by Thanos. The journey has been painful, but hope has returned. In the film's final moments, Steve Rogers is shown dancing with Peggy Carter, fulfilling the promise he made decades earlier. The image serves as a perfect ending to his story. After a lifetime of war and sacrifice, he finally gets the chance to live the life he always wanted.